Hello everyone, this is Lawrence. Last week I went to our local FYE retail store, which is the big retail outlet that sells music and DVDs, and it was going out of business. This type of business has been hit very hard, you know, the retail of music and audio and video with streaming services, and I hate for them to go out of business, any business to close like that, because I feel bad for the employees. But I was going to take advantage of the liquidation prices, so I waited. When they got the vinyl records down to 50%, I took $50 of Christmas money I received and spent it on albums. And I'm making a video for each album. This is the second video. The first one was for the Cars reissue Touch and Go album, and this is the second video for a famous band that is a legendary. They're one of the great rock bands of all times, right up there with the Who, the Stones, the Eagles. And I'm talking about, this is the album that made them a superstar, and not the one I brought. U2, and this is their War album, their third album. See? This one, although their first two albums, debut and sophomore albums, did get them known, you know, noticed and some radio play. This is the album that made them superstars, and this is when I got on board. The big radio hits were Sunday, Bloody Sunday, New Year's Day, and Two Hearts Beat as One, and other songs that played on the radio from this album as well. There's not a skip over track on this album. It's a stunning classic for that era. I got my cheat notes here, so I'm going to pull those up. And to read my cheat notes, I got to put on my glasses. The second album, which came about 2 years later, was something totally different. They were afraid, U2 was afraid of, with the last album, becoming known as a slogan shouting, you know, stadium rock band. So they laid the groundwork for their next album to be a more experimental, more artsy, more ambient, A-M-B-I-E-N-T, if I pronounce that right, more abstract in sound. So you listen to it, you know, Guitars Don't Hit You with Channing. It was The Unforgettable Fire. The radio hits were Pride in the Name of Love, Bad, and Sort of Homecoming. The entire album's solid. Classic U2 album, and a real change in their sound and the direction where they would head next. It took me a while to get to absorb this album, to really take it in, but once that happened, once it really seeped into me, I knew they did a great album. They were doing something different. They brought in legendary producer Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois, L-A-N-O-I-S, who produced other people, including Bob Dylan. And Brian Eno, we know his history, to achieve this new sound they wanted to create. The next album took them from superstars to megastars. They still kept the two producers, Brian and Daniel. This album, Joshua Tree, when you think of U2, you often think of this album first. It was their first #1 album, which stayed there for a good number of weeks. 2 #1 singles on Billboard single chart, and another single that went top 20 on Billboard single chart. I think this album won for Best Album of the Year for the Grammys. And if I can go to my cheat notes here, the influences was American and Irish roots music, along with social and political, factors as well. So this album here is just, stunning, grand scale. It also contained Bullet in the Blue Sky, Running to Stand Still, Red Hill Mining Town, God's Country, Trip to Your Wire, One Tree Hill, Exit, and Mothers of the Disappeared. Not a skip over track, just a wonderful work of art. They released a movie called Rattle and Hum and an album of music from that movie, which I liked a lot, but it was not really considered a full-fledged follow-up to the Joshua Tree. There was a number of live tracks, studio tracks. The radio hits were When Love Comes to Town, which had B.B. King singing, and Angel Harlem, which was inspired by Billie Holiday, who I consider one of the all-time great singers ever, a vocal artist, but a number of other tracks I really like, but it wasn't quite the full follow-up to Joshua Tree. After the promotion for Rattle and Hum and the tour ended, they disengaged a bit from their audience, no touring, no promotions. And for the next album, again, they wanted a new direction, to do something different. They ventured off to Germany right after the reunification and the fall of the Berlin Wall to seek inspiration and the historical importance of what was going on there. And to their disappointment, they found the place to be kind of in disarray, chaos, kind of bleak. And the studio they chose to record in, which was the same studio Bowie used for his Berlin albums, was in a disarray, and they could not decide what they wanted to do, what directions. Bono and The Edge have been writing separately for the first time, separate from Larry and Adam, and they wanted to go more into alternative rock, industrial music, electronic dance music direction. Larry had been listening to classic rock, Hendrix, The Who, Cream, wanted to structure the album that way, along those lines, and Adam was thinking of more traditional U2 sound. So, work began writing in Berlin, and they were not happy with what was coming up. They even had doubts whether they could continue on as a band. And they brought in Brian Eno, and he co-produced the album. had listened to the tapes, he said, y'all are making more progress than what you think. Okay. One song that came out, they did in Berlin, practically saved the band because they thought it was really special, a sign that they needed to continue on. It was one of their most popular songs ever. So, you know, that was good. They went back to Dublin, Ireland, series of recordings, trial and errors, disagreements, even one trip back to Germany to finish up what they started, and then the tapes got lost there in a hotel room and ended up bootleg, so that brought spirits down. But eventually everything came into place after recording at 3 different studios to produce their best album, Achtung Baby. And I will refer to my cheat notes here. They went to Germany. I don't know if I mentioned this before in this video, but anyway, to get away from their domestic lives. The enemy of rock and roll, as Bono called it, the routine domestic. And, you know, eventually made it back to Dublin, Ireland, recorded the album. Let me go down the track listings. Zoo Station, they really used the studio, everything they could do, studio techniques. If the Joshua Tree was their rubber sole, then this was their revolver. They were doing stuff like altering the vocals, where Zoo Station, when you put it on, it sounds like the record is broken, that there's something wrong. Is this the new U2 album? Also, Bono's voice is disguised in such a way a bank robber would put a stocking over their face to disguise the appearance. This album contained a lot of hits, a lot of classics. All the songs except 2 are all standouts, and even the 2 non-standouts are great. So there was the intro song, Zoo Station, Even Better Than the Real Thing, 1, Until the End of the World, Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses, You're So Cruel. It has the You're So Cruel. This album has some very interesting lyrics, and it's not, a friend of mine said their music sounds too preachy, too you know, self-serving. This album, I don't think it is. It's more you know, introspective, oneself, you know, your personal life, your situation, your relationships with other people, your relationships in religion. So, you know, they're not coming out preaching. You're So Cruel. It has lyrics like, I disappeared in you, but you disappeared from me. Throughout the album, it has those type of lyrics. The Fly, Mysterious Ways, Trying to Throw Your Arms Around the World. The two songs that are kind of not quite a standout, Ultraviolet, Light My Way, and Abacat, are still great tracks, you know, that will keep you in there. Love is Blindness is absolutely a chilling stunner closer of the album. So that's my assessment, my review. The guitars are just magnificent. The way this is a much heavier sounding album than they ever done before. When I played it, I had to adjust the bass a little bit because the bass is very heavy, and turn up the treble a little bit. The guitars, they're using all kinds of distortions and effects, and great guitar licks, parts, bits, fill-ins that had been studio processed. Bono's voice is just magnificent, and that's been processed and used special effects too. They were really pushing boundaries with this album, unlike any other albums they ever did. They'd taken it to the next level. For people who do not like YouTube, or just have this bad image of that they're preachy, or self-absorbed, they should get the best copy of this, the reissue, either CD or album, and just do the total full attention headphone listening. They will be blown away. And even if you're not, you'll have a new appreciation for this album. The music speaks for itself. So that's my second video of what I purchased. To conclude, after Achtung Baby, and here it is, they released this little gem, which they recorded very fast between a tour, or a break in a tour, Zuroba. This has, like I said, Achtung Baby was like their revolver. This has a kind of a feel in places like Sgt. Pepper's. A really cool electronic album. And a lot of fans like this album. The original Achtung Baby on CD. Pop. If I had to pick my least favorite U2 album, although I still like the album, that would be probably at the bottom of my list. I was a bit disappointed, although I like some of the songs very much. I was expecting more, but as I heard, they didn't really get a chance to complete this album as they like to, because the tour dates were catching them. The tour dates have been booked, and they had to get this album rolling. Some very good tracks on here. I like the middle part, Staring at the Sun. I think is a great U2 song. Last Night on Earth and Gone. So 3 songs in the middle part are just great. All That You Can't Leave Behind, which established the U2 sound for the 2000s. I thought this was a much better album than Pop. I like this album a lot. The problem with U2 after All You Can't Leave Behind, with follow-up albums of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, No Line Horizon, and the 2 follow-ups, Songs of Experience and Songs of Innocence. I think they kind of fall on a format, you know, a predictability. Although the music is still great, the lyrics are great. I think fans are looking for, you know, if they're continuing on to just do something totally different, reinvent themselves again. But we'll see. But U2 is a great band that produced wonderful music. So wanted to keep this video 15 minutes, but I decided to just let it run as long as it needs to be. Achtung Baby, classic U2 album. It ranks up there. I would put it in the top 3, probably at number 1, my personal favorite. I'm glad to be hearing it, rediscovering it again, 180 gram vinyl. It sounds magnificent. So this concludes the video, and I welcome your comments. Thank you for watching, and be looking for my other 2 videos for the last 2 albums. Take care. Bye.